Hey friends, it's Laura with Laura B Floss Tube. Welcome or welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me today. We're going to continue our video series on making the Christmas tree quilt that I'm going to use for an ornament hanger. And today I'm just going to go through kind of my process, my plan, I guess, of how I'm going to divide and conquer this tree into the different fabrics that I have collected for this project. So you might remember if you've seen my earlier videos, and if not, I would encourage you to go back and look. I do have a pattern of the graphic on a piece of paper, and I have numbered all of the shapes. They're numbered on here, and they're also numbered up here. So when I go through to assign my fabrics to the different shapes, I'll be able to remember what goes where, because I am going to start cutting this apart. And that is, I've got to admit, it's a little daunting of a task at this point in time for me to wrap my head around, but it's going to be okay, we hope. So, as I mentioned last time, a few things that I know that I can do pretty quickly and easily. I know that the circles out here in the background and some of the circles on the interior part of the tree, all of those are going to be red. So I have two different red fabrics in my stash here set aside for this project. So I'm basically going to just kind of, take these different shapes and divide them out between these two fabrics, because I just kind of want an even disbursement of these two fabrics into my design. So that's the first thing that I will do. I will just take my scissors and start cutting out these shapes and figuring out, where they go. And putting some with the one red and some with the other. Now the other thing that I know that I can do is all of these little star shapes that I have in the background, all of those are going to be out of my blue fabric. Now my blue fabric is directional, but that's going to be okay because we can change our applique shapes around, and you'll notice that all of my stars are not they're a type of a shape that you can, switch them around a little bit, so it's not going to matter if I don't get my fabric sewn perfectly onto the interfacing for that directional print. So the thing that's left, I guess two more things. One more easy is that obviously the trunk of the tree will be this brown, so that'll be an easy thing to do. And the one difference of the star is the topper of the tree, and that's going to be this gold fabric. So all of those pieces will be cut out and put with the gold fabric, so I can start doing my sewing for the applique shapes, so I can turn them out. Now, all of these branches on the interior of the tree are going to come from all of these green fabrics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of look at this tree and decide how I want to disperse those fabrics throughout. If there are places that I want the same green, like this section right here, I have 2, 4, 5 little blips that make that little flourish up at the top of the tree. Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know what? I would want these two the same, these two the same, and then this one different. So I'm going to have 3 fabrics here for sure. And then I have these 3 smaller ones that I'll probably make those out of the same green fabric as well. To make it easier on myself, I am going to sort my green fabrics kind of by shade, I guess. And then I'm going to label each one of them with a letter. If you've used any of the Fat Quarter Shop patterns, you know that when they're cutting when they give you your cutting directions, and the books that Lori Holt puts out, well, with It's Soma and Fat Quarter Shop, they use letters to list all of their pieces. Well, I'm going to do a similar process for listing my fabrics. So I'm going to say, this fabric is A, and any place that I want A on my tree, I'll just make an A on that shape, and that way I know this is the fabric I want there, and that's where it's going to go. So I'm going to go through that process, and then we're going to come back together after I cut a few of these out, just so you can see how I'm going to stack it up and get it organized before I start sewing. All right, so I made a few decisions just to make things a little easier on myself and to help speed up the process of breaking down my tree. I made the decision that all of the little circles are going to be out of fabric A, which I have labeled, and you can see them stacked here on my table. I've labeled them A through Q. I do have 16 different green fabrics. I can't believe I have that many, but I do. So all of the small circles are going to be out of fabric A, and that's kind of a medium dark toned green. And then all of the small stars on the inside of the tree are going to be out of my B fabric, which is like kind of a lighter, brighter green. And that's going to give me a little bit of contrast, a little bit of evenly dispersed colors. And then these three larger stars inside the tree are going to be out of H, which is a medium fabric. So those will be, that will help me break down. And then the only thing I have to do is the branches as I go through, because as you go through, you can see, oh, it's a star, I already have that. Oh, it's a circle, I already have that. So it's just all of these branches that I have to break down. And what I'm going to do is kind of hold some fabrics up together on the tree, kind of see how I want that dispersed. And then kind of honestly, I'm going to do a really good mixture of lights and darks just to get like a really good movement in my finished Christmas tree. So this is exciting, and you can see that my interfacing is much smaller now. I went ahead and cut off all of the big circles that I'm going to make with that blue or the red fabrics, and I cut off the extra stars on the outside that go in the background. That's matched up with my blue fabric. The top stars matched up with my gold, and the trunk of the tree is already matched up with my brown. Now I haven't sewn any of those yet, but they're in a pile, and actually, all right, so I've just laid those to the side, and I just have them with the trunk of my tree on the brown fabric, some of the circles on the red, and some of the circles on the other red, and that big star on the gold. So those are just laying to the side, and then once I get everything cut out and apart off of the interfacing and matched up with the different fabrics, I'll go through and start cutting the sizes of the fabric I need to cover my shapes. The next step in this, like I was saying, is just to go through and label all of these shapes. And I am going to just go ahead and label them with the letters on the fabric, and then I'll start cutting them apart. And once I cut them apart, I'll just lay them on the coordinating fabrics, and I'll have all those stacks ready so I can match up the shapes, the fabric, cut the fabric to the right side, and start sewing. Okay, so now that I am basically done sorting my shapes into the fabrics, I thought I would show you exactly what I'm doing so you can mimic this process if you like, or improve upon it, which is even better and very flattering. So please feel free to do that. So I just have this section left up here for my tree. I'm just going to unpin this and take it down because I'm going to cut all these shapes apart together and sort them into my fabrics. So I'm going to bring you closer and swing you down so you can see what I'm doing. So here are my stacks of fabrics. I have them all labeled C through Q. Remember, I did pull 3 of those out for the circles, stars, and small stars on the interior of the tree. So basically what I'm going to do is just take this last little section, which is the same thing I've done with all the other sections, and cut the shapes apart and then layer them with the fabric. I'm probably going to speed this up just because I'm pretty sure you don't need to see me cut out shapes. So on the tree I labeled these, one's a C fabric, so I just matched up with the C, and one is an E fabric, so I put that in the E pile. And then I'm going to continue going on and splitting up the rest of these. And then as soon as I get these piles together, I will start cutting fabric to use for those shapes. share a few little extra just notes on this first part of the process. The reason I was able to do this, cut that tree apart and separate it all out and lay it confidently with the fabrics that's going to be cut out or sewn up with, is because I do have this pattern, remember, where it tells me where each one of those pieces go on my tree. They're all labeled, they all have a number on them, and now they also have a fabric letter on them. So all of those piles are set on my craft table, and the reason I went ahead and sorted them out is just because now I can grab, let's say for instance, my first fabric here lying here is C. I can grab this fabric and these pieces, and I know that these are the pieces that are cut out of fabric C, and I can go ahead and lay them on the fabric and cut out around them, cut out the shape or the size fabric that I need, and I can pin, I'll probably pin those together and then put them in a pile to be sewn at a future time. I'll do that with each one of the fabrics laying on my table, and then after I get all of the interfacing and fabric matched up and cut out to the size that I need, I can go ahead and start sewing those shapes. I'll probably, honestly, probably the next thing that I will do, I will start sewing the shapes, but before that, or maybe after that, I will start sewing the background squares together that we talked about in video 2 or 3. And those will help me start building the background of my quilt and start laying those shapes out together on my design wall. In order to help you understand that next step of the process, just matching your fabric and interfacing, I am going to go ahead and include that at the end of this video, and that'll be our last little segment for this tutorial. The next tutorial will be to start sewing those shapes together and start building our background fabric for the tree quilt as well. So let me go ahead and grab one of these fabrics and start building the interfacing fabric pairs so you can see what that's going to look like. Okay, so now that I have all my shapes cut out from the interfacing and sorted to the various fabrics, what I need to do is take those shapes and just kind of lay them out on my fabric and cut the sizes of fabric I need to do my interfacing applique technique. So what I'm going to do is I have these little pieces right here. I'm just going to lay those on my fabric, cut around them. I'm actually going to go ahead and pin them together just so I don't lose any. Although I may just stack them all and do one big pin through all of it. Now remember, when we're doing the interfacing applique technique, that you do sew to the right side of your fabric. So you're going to lay your shapes the way that you want them. And if you do need, since this is directional fabric, I do have my pattern here. And I'm just going to do quick references on how each of these should look. So I know this one kind of goes up, so I want to make sure it goes up like that. Now I just need to cut these out, pin them together, and I'll be ready to sew. It took me about an hour to match up all the fabrics and interfacing pieces, but I have all of them here in a nice little project tote. They're all stacked up, ready to go. They're pinned together, and you can kind of see, like, depending on which fabric I was working with, I guess I kind of went two different ways. Some of them I cut the fabric pieces down to the size of the shape that I needed. Other ones I just cut the fabric like the full, size that I'm going to need to cover the shapes that I have allocated for that fabric. So I'm just going to take these to the sewing machine and start stitching them, but I'm not going to do that until the next video. So this is where we're going to end today, and just letting you know what my next steps are for the plan for this quilt. So I am going to, like I said, all of these are matched up, so I am going to start sewing on some of them. The other thing I'm going to do is start looking at my little cheat sheet here to tell me which background fabric pieces that I can sew together to get my different sections. And the key to this project is going to be a lot of labeling, organization, and just keeping track of where you're at and where things go. So with that, we're going to wrap up for today. I hope you've enjoyed this segment in the ornament Christmas tree quilt. And the next time we meet again, I'm going to try to post these videos on Thursdays. So just be watching for those on a Thursday morning, afternoon, depends on what day of the week I get it recorded on. But the next video I will go over just doing the background squares and getting those segments together. And then I will go over another little like applique, the interfacing applique technique. I'll do a video on that just in case you haven't seen that before. It is, if you've done any Lori Holt quilts, then you are definitely familiar with that. And I'm a huge Lori Holt fan. So if you've seen videos on my channel, you know that I do those quite often. But I just thought I'd have another video that would just be a quick tutorial, so you can be looking for that coming up too. So once I get all the background sections together and I get the applique shapes sewn together and turned out and pressed, then we'll start laying them out on the background segments and appliquing them down. So this project will be coming together. It's probably going to be still a little while before we see a finished result from this project. But it is coming together, and definitely happy that I have all that interfacing off my design wall, because that really helps free up that space, and it also helps free up my mind to know that I am making progress on this project. So thank you so much for joining in. I think the channel is almost to 4,900 subscribers now, so thank you so much for liking and subscribing and sharing the videos out. That definitely helps get the word out about my content and my channel. So I appreciate that so much. And, I hope that you have found something that will inspire you. Maybe it's an organization tip, maybe it's a little shortcut, maybe it's just the general idea that you're interested in. If you're interested in how I got that image up there to begin with, make sure you go way back to the first video and look at how I used a projector to do that. So anyway, yeah, with all of that being said, I hope you have a fantastic week, a fantastic weekend, depending on when you're watching this. And until next time, happy stitching.